All right. Okay, guys. So jumping off where I last stopped, I was talking about Asperger's syndrome, which can be part of the autism spectrum. And what I was saying is there's a lot of people who are now skeptical of these spectrums of disorders because sometimes it trying to classify these things under one umbrella term does it a disservice to the people who suffer them. So autism has this range of disorders going from Asperger's syndrome to mild to atypical to really severe autism. And the people suffer those things in different ways. So it becomes a little unfair to all call them a type of autism when they're being suffered in different ways. Okay. Um, and it's also, it can be used to stigmatize people as well. I should know because I have used it myself, and I'm honest. I'll be quite honest. I've used it to stigmatize people myself about autism. Specifically, I've talked about the founder of Meta. I'm not going to use his name, as well as the founder of Tesla. Uh, Whereas one has admitted to having autism, the other one, it's quite apparent that he does, even though, as far as I know, publicly he hasn't mentioned it, but to people in a psychological community, he displays it and is made fun of repeatedly in popular culture that he seems to be quite um what's a nice way to put this, guys? Well, his social skills are awkward. So he's always looked like he's reading from a from a prompter or something and has to remember to blink his eyes because again it's obvious he's on the autism spectrum somewhere. But get into that, I wanted to say that I think it might be a disservice talking about a lot of these disorders being on the spectrum when they might be their own sorts of disorders with just overlapping types of symptoms or etiology. So I can't speak on that. I'm not an expert in the helping field, um, or any sort of clinical counseling psychology. I have a bare minimum of um, background in that, but I can say that that is fair to say, which um, harps back to what I was saying about bipolar disorder and clinical depression. So you have bipolar disorder and unipolar disorder, but they're all on the same spectrum of depressive disorders, which is weird because, like I said, they're very unique from each other. Someone suffering bipolar disorder to someone suffering unipolar disorder or major depression are quite different, especially when a person suffering bipolar disorder over here may not even suffer a clinical depressive episode. It may just be the mania. So maybe they should be held distinctly. And maybe that might be a subject for the next text revision of the DSM-5, is that um, in the same way that they're looking at personality types no longer being clinical disorders, maybe we can start looking at these different um, psychological disorders as not necessarily being on the spectrum, because you have the types, which is fine, but then you put them along a spectrum with other related mental illnesses, and they might be quite dissimilar to each other. Okay. So I just wanted to add that onto the last video because I wanted to make that separate. And towards the end of the video, I realized, yeah, I want to talk about this separately when I started mentioning Asperger's syndrome and autism, and almost got lost for words when I wanted to mention autism. But yeah, I I wasn't saying that people were using that incorrectly as such, but to bring that back into the fold, yeah, people will call people autistic just for being just for lacking certain social skills, and I don't think that's fair.